All right, what's up, everyone? This is Jason Tucker, and this is WP Watercooler's WPblab episode number 121. We took a little bit of a hiatus before we came into this particular episode. But if you're listening to this as a podcast, you don't even know that happened. Yeah, it could be years from now, and you're like, oh, this is awesome. Another episode came out. Anyhow, today we're going to be talking about the state of journalism and how that matters to WordPress. And so, Bridget and I'm not a writer. Bridget is a writer. She's a social media person. But Jen Miller this is what she does. She is our journalist. She's the one that we go to and say, Jen, I don't know how to do this thing. And so, and she's also our producer, what we call our producer Jen on the show. So, Bridget, tell everybody about yourself, and then I'll introduce myself and be rude to Jen, and then we'll finally actually let Jen introduce herself.
Hi, WPblabbers. I'm sorry I've been absent. It's good to see everybody. I am a social media marketer and marketing consultant primarily for WordPress-based businesses, and I am accepting a few more clients because I scaled back my part-time job. So get in while you can. BridgetWiller.com.
Awesome. It's always awesome to do this particular episode in this show of being able to do a WPblab. Oh my goodness. It's been a little bit since we've actually done this show. And it's been, I haven't seen Jen and Bridget at the same time for quite a while, because neither one of us have been going to the meetups that we've been normally going to. So
I've been going.
I'm Jason Tucker. You can find me over at Jason Tucker on Twitter. My website is jasontucker.blog. I do this show, WPblab. We do these on Thursdays at 7 o'clock Pacific. And I also do another show called WPwatercooler, which is, it's kind of like the album title of the band's name. It's like that whole like self-titled thing. So you can go over to WPwatercooler.com. You can find all the shows that are happening there. You can even see some archives of when Bridget and Jen used to do a show called Community Connections. That thing's still kicking around. So feel free to go take a look at that. We might even talk a little bit about that. Let's see. All right, we're rude to Jen long enough. Jen Miller, tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Jen Miller. Let's see, I'm here, producer Jen, to just sort of chime in on some trends that I've been seeing lately, and that this week really were called to attention to everyone in journalism and in the world at large. And I have a company called Need Someone to Blog, Need Someone To. We do content and blogging for businesses all over the world.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking time out to come and hang out with us. We really appreciate it. Thursday is always an interesting day to make this thing happen, so I was glad you're able to be available.
But also, Jen has a college degree.
Oh, yeah. There's that.
What is your college degree? No, I mean, I'm just saying.
I'm not. I don't have a college degree.
You have a college degree specifically
so my degree is actually in liberal studies, because with a minor in journalism, because as a journalist, you never want to get a journalism or communications degree, because that's kind of laughable. You want something that shows that you can operate in the real world. And so liberal arts with a minor in music with an option in music and a minor in journalism. Wow. My degree.
Long Beach State. Go Beach.
I went to Long Beach State, was just there checking out the SSPA building, which is where all the J School classes happen, or at least used to, last week, actually. So kind of fun.
Can you just for the sake of people who don't know you, tell a little bit about how you got started in the newspaper industry?
Absolutely. So when I was 17 years old, I had just started college, and I was a professional, or I wanted to be a professional musician, and was going to school for that, and was in a car accident. And with my car accident, I ended up having to find an alternate career path. And my chiropractor and my doctor actually suggested that I go into writing, because that was something I loved to do. And I went down to the local newspaper, and they needed an intern, and I was, right age and stage. And so they put a camera in my hand and said, go to the pier. It was in Seal Beach, and start interviewing people, ask them all the same question and come back with the answers. That's what I did. And it went really well, and I loved it. And so I ended up doing that for, a few weeks. And before I knew it, I had a paid position at the newspaper. And then I went I started writing like some features. I did the police beat, which was kind of fun. I got to go down to City Hall, look at all the records and everything. And in Seal Beach, which is where I grew up, a lot of zoning issues happened because people wanted to build their houses up. And at the time, and probably still, they were very concerned with, blocking people's ocean views. And so if someone pulled a building permit, it could be a huge story depending on where that house was located. So we had to investigate it. So that was like some investigative reporting on something that seems so boring that could turn into a huge story, and often it did. Same with the police blotter. You got to see what was going on in the community and where car accidents were happening with frequency, if there was a lot of drunk drivers, where that was happening, or if there seemed to be a lot of crimes. And so it was interesting because we got to really go into that. While I was at Cal State Long Beach, I was actually, strangely enough, also the police reporter for the newspaper, I think it was. I worked on the magazine and the newspaper while I was in college. And so, but when I was at the newspaper, that was one of the things I had to cover. And that was like hard news because a college campus is not necessarily a safe place.
Yeah.
And, I was pretty naive, and I woke up pretty quick and became really scared to walk around that campus, especially at night. And sometimes my stories required that.
Yeah.
And so I had to get some safety measures in place so that I felt safe doing that. And it's funny how when you're telling the news, you end up having to really internalize a lot of things that you're trying to teach to your audience. So that was part of what I learned as a journalist back then. But my favorite thing that I did, and Bridget, I don't know if I've ever told you this story. It's kind of funny. When I was a little bit older, I was still working at the newspaper. I was editor at this point of, it was a group of community newspapers, and we had a dining and entertainment magazine. And at this point I was on the dining and entertainment magazine. And I would put together a quarterly publication. And so I would also be available to do other stories. Well, we, in watching the police beat, had seen that there were some issues with some of the liquor establishments that were nearby. And so decided that it was time to just check everything out. And since I think I was 18 at this point. Was I 18?
I remember this story.
Yeah, I was 18. So I was old enough to be arrested. And but I looked like I was 12. Good genes, whatever. And so we made up a list of all of the liquor stores in our circulation area. And I started going to each of them and trying to buy a 6-pack of beer. And
you were doing investigative journalism.
I was doing investigative journalism. And I had my ID that said I was 18 years old. And when people would ask for my ID, I would show it to them. And I had someone in the car with me who was over 21, but she didn't go into the store with me. She was just there to make sure, everything was okay. Right. I wasn't drinking the alcohol, that kind of thing. And we just kept filling the trunk up with 6-packs, one after another. And we would notate what time, what date, the clerk's name, everything, so that we had all the stats in place for the article I was going to write. Wow. And what we found was that 30% of the establishments that I went into sold me alcohol.
Whoa, that's a really high number.
Oh, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And I think the reason we had looked into it was there were a lot of alcohol-related teenage deaths that had been showing up. And so we were like, let's go expose it, What ended up happening was the publisher of the newspaper went ahead the week before my story was coming out, and my story had all the details. And so he published and said, get ready for next week when, Jen Miller is going to share her experience. And he basically told what was going to happen without giving details. And that week we got a call within hours of the paper going out, like, being circulated. We got a call from the ABC, Alcohol and Beverage Control, for our county. And they said that the DA would, and so the publisher was told that the DA wanted to prosecute me for purchasing this, because what I had done was uncovered that they weren't doing their work, basically.
Wow.
And I had no idea. And so I got pulled into the office and he's like, "Are you prepared to go to jail for this story?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, what are you talking about?
Dude, that's going on my resume. This is going to be awesome.
I'm like, my mom always
I look good in orange.
Yeah. Well, it's funny though. My mom always told me, she's like, "If you ever get arrested, you call your dad, because I'm not coming to get you." And so I was like, well, and it was a hard moment to think, do I really need to do this? And so we had a big talk, and like everyone poured into the office, and we all kind of exchanged stories on, is it worth it for this story? Which, by doing the work, we made them aware, which was the whole point, right? To say, look, there's a problem. Let's do it. And so the corporate lawyer came in and talked to me, and we all decided that instead of publishing every detail of the story and naming names and clerks and stores and times and dates, so that prosecution would be able to prosecute me based on all the facts that I handed over, that I would instead talk about my experience. And so I was guest columnist in the publishers circle that week. And, we kind of backed down a little, but what ended up happening was that in that community, another advocacy group was formed, a nonprofit of the moms whose kids had passed away. And they started checking all of these businesses, and and they created a group called Seal Beach Cares. And so in Seal Beach, they would put signs up, and they put the signs up in Huntington Beach and in Huntington Harbor and Los Alamitos too. But if the establishment committed to not selling to minors, they would get the sign. And, so it ended up getting widespread publicity and making a difference in the community without me having to go to jail, which was awesome.
So that is an amazing story. And sometimes the truth just hurts. And that's part of journalism. So circling back to WordPress, there are publications that claim to be journalistic and can at times be biased because of political and or financial reasons. So can you talk a little bit about the difference between blogging, like what I do, and journalism? What is the difference between subjectivity and objectivity? And
right, sure. So
sorry, my roommate's like has her speaker on.
So, as a journalist, there's like a creed or an oath that, at least when I was in school, was in place. You're a journalist because you want to tell the truth. You want to uncover the truth. You want to be objective in the news, but you want to show what's really happening. And in blogging, that's not the case. You can blog on whatever you feel and give it any slant you want. You can be investigative, and you can be a reporter type where you only report on what you think is accurate. But most bloggers are not calling 10 sources to get a story.
Yeah, they're meta blogging.
Yeah. And so
or meta reporting, if you want to
right,
put the word reporting in there.
Well, and I mean, today's world, though, we're seeing major publications with fake news, right? And with these stories that haven't had that due diligence that way back when I was taught to do when you wrote a story. Right. And know who your sources are. Make sure that your sources are correct. follow up on leads that come from the story and don't leave anything undone. That's not something that you see in journalism these days. And so journalism has shifted, and it's also very focused on money. And it's sad, but we've seen the newspaper industry especially just crumble. Yeah. Magazines have always been a little more featurey, and so they'll probably stay around for a lot longer. But and it's not just the web that has caused this. It's the fact that, but it does have a lot to do with the fact that people can get information from so many different sources. And so it's hard to stay in the lead when you're a source that has a set deadline, like a newspaper. You have to publish.
Yeah.
Right. And we used to have, it was kind of a race to see who could break the story. And you still see that like in TV, but in newsprint, you're not seeing who's going to break the story as much as you're seeing who's going to have something different.
Because it gets broken on Twitter, right?
Right. Exactly. Social media has changed that. And websites, WordPress, we're over 30%. I think
32
said it was 33 this week or something. So, the market share of websites and even WordPress for publishers, like publishers are getting more in tune with their online options than they are with their paper, with ink. And one of the things that I've seen happen is at my local papers, I used to be able to call someone up and say, hey, I need to get the story in, whether it's for a client or a community group I volunteer with. And we used to be able to get a lot of promotion. Now I just use online forums, and, it's an event listing, or I put it in social media. But when you call a newspaper or send an email in, a lot of times what you're getting is an intern who's there that week or for 6 weeks, and then they're gone. You're not making the connections we used to be able to have. Right. I used to get phone calls saying, Jen, I need you to explain this to me for one of the groups I'm involved with, because they wanted to have the inside take, and nobody's doing that kind of reporting anymore. So it's sad. It's an evolution, but it kind of is one of the reasons why blogging is so important. If you have a personal blog and you have insight on a topic, you have more of a chance of being heard.
Bridget, earlier you were talking about, not to totally change subjects, but I didn't want to lose this because I'm one of those people where I'll totally lose it. We'll come back to what Jen was just saying. But one of the things regarding this idea of publications being owned by other companies or any of those sorts of things, the one that really makes me think a lot about this is Jeff Bezos and Washington Post, where Bezos owns the Washington Post. Bezos has a massive company, which they're not even using WordPress. They're using their own system, which is most likely, I would imagine, hosted on AWS because, Amazon, right? But to top that, the idea is that if Washington Post was going to say something about Amazon or about Jeff Bezos and his, the things that are going on in his family's life and all those things that are going on, they have to make sure that they're really, really, really talking about, the fact that they're owned by this company, and that you have to almost cite that almost every time you talk about Amazon, right? I mean, that's kind of what goes down with this. Are we seeing that the various publications that are in the WordPress space are doing that sort of thing? And if they are, how should they be navigating it if we're not seeing it that way?
Okay, first of all, conglomerates and news is not a new thing. It's been happening since Gutenberg made the press and Martin Luther printed out your Catholic Church.
Oil barons have been running newspapers,
Right. I'm going to correct your theology. You're welcome. Right.
Right.
I mean, Gutenberg isn't just a new WordPress editor. It revolutionized the entire world. But, unfortunately, I think that's a little ambitious for WordPress, but regardless, right? So Rupert Murdoch with Fox, Jane Fonda's husband with CNN, whatever his name is, I can't remember right now. Ted Turner at
Yep.
CNN and all this stuff. That's always been a thing, right? But when the companies are smaller and the egos are more entwined, I mean,
Mhm.
I mean, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm just going to say it. How many of our listeners really know that the tavern, WP Tavern, is funded by Aubrey Capital, which is a company owned by Matt Mullenweg?
Yeah. I mean, it was
That's a
probably,
very close,
geez,
small.
that was a couple years back that I learned that,
Yeah, I
and
mean, I didn't know, like, but like, and so then you see this piece come out on the marketing team and everything.
right.
I was a little surprised I wasn't reached out to for the other side of the story. That's fine, like whatever, but that's not journalism. Like, you should at least attempt to look like you're unbiased. And of course, there's always been conspiracies, not just in WordPress, but in every kind of industry where they're like going to hush a story. The whole reason why I say Fridays where content goes to die is because that's traditionally where PR people send political news that they don't want anybody to know about, because nobody gives a
Right.
crap on Fridays. Friday is not on the internet, maybe, but Fridays where content goes to die. Everybody's doing their happy hour weekend thing. They do not
Right.
care about Kamala Harris running for president or whatever. Okay. And I have taken a complete, like, you know how people take fasts from social media? Like, I have taken a news fast because I realized after my husband died, number one, it doesn't matter. And number two, it's just like when I was in college watching Days of Our Lives. Luke and Laura, or from General Hospital, whatever, they're still probably married and have grandchildren. Somebody's been in a coma a few times. It's all the same thing, right? And it just keeps going on. You go to the grocery store aisle, National Enquirer's talking about a soap opera digest. There's still these two people, and they're still the dominant characters on a soap opera that's been going on since
Right.
1960. Okay, so like we can get our news anywhere. To me, Twitter's easier because I have a news list. You know me and lists, and
Yep.
I'm like Eric Tratz in our from Peepso in our chat. He's like, look, I haven't even touched a paper in years. I don't own a TV. I mean, it's fine, you know. Um,
Well, I
and
mean, WP Candy was a publication that was, supposed to send out mailings and never really actually sent out a lot of mailings. But the idea was to have a physical publication that was being sent out that went along with the actual PDF publication that was going out as well. So
yeah, I mean, I don't think we have to get
yeah,
stuck to killing rainforests just to call it journalism. Maybe I'm on the other side of this, but you should still do your due diligence. I feel
Mhm.
like in some ways Twitter's been abused in the news with putting out fake news or whatever. That
Right.
people just believe stuff, whether it's inside our own industry or in the world. Um, but you have to like always be kind of cynical, like Jen was saying, like, well, let's go find out why so and so pulled a building permit. It's just like it's like Mac rumors. Oh, look, so and so Apple just filed a patent. And that's what SEOs do with Google. Google just filed another patent. And it's the same version of what Jen said with the building permits in Seal Beach. Somebody's trying to block somebody's view. Oh, look, they're trying to build a hotel, right? And it becomes a big thing. And who's funding this? Oh, it's like Dianne Feinstein with her husband having all this money and weapons, and she's on the board of like security or something. Like,
Right. Yeah.
whatever.
No matter what, you're always
There's
going
always
to
going
have
to
some type
be
of issue. Some.
intertwined.
Right.
Yep.
But with WordPress having a mission, and we're part of the WordPress community, of democratizing publishing. Publishing is like, I remember seeing one of Matt's old interviews saying everybody should be as good as TechCrunch. It's like you should have a website as good as TechCrunch. And I
Yeah.
feel like it's so admirable. And even I love WordPress. And even though I retired from the Make team to be a team rep, as a single woman who is self-employed, I gotta make a choice, right? Yost is doing his thing, and he's qualified and able, and he's been in Metis for, I don't know, 10 years or some ridiculous amount of time. So
Yep.
do your thing, chicken wing, right? I'm gonna use billable time. because I'm self-employed and I'm a single woman, right? Like, let's be in reality here, right? I did it. It's done. It's perfect. Let's go. But in the same vein, right? Like, here's the thing. We want people to be able to have a voice. And this is what I loved about Matt's vision, Matt Mullenweg, a voice to the voiceless. So anybody could have the truth and speak the truth. And so when we were having a chat about this, I thought, like, how even in like affiliate marketing and some of the stuff that we've been doing in WordPress, and I say we as all of us, not necessarily that any of our hands are tainted with, but the whole like, well, I get a newsletter and it's sponsored by whatever, and this show is sponsored by Desktop Server or ServerPress, and then that's great and fine. And I know a lot of, we had this conversation, like we wanted to be able to say whatever we want on Water Cooler without feeling upset that we could say, why didn't ServerPress have support for PHP 7.2 until like last year, when it's already going to be not supported in March or whatever, right? Like, you should have the freedom to tell the truth, because the truth does make us all better. And so my question to Jen is, like, from your perspective as an agency owner, as somebody who understands the WordPress ecosystem, the financial part of it, what about product reviews and those kinds of things, and paid affiliate blogging? Like, how do you feel, like, how does that work with the marketing, the paid marketing and journalism? Like, what can we take from journalism to be more fair even in our product reviews?
Well, I don't feel that product reviews come under the scope of journalism at all.
Well, there you go, folks, and thanks for tuning in.
Product reviews, I mean, it's like an editorial. It's interesting to read. It's good to compare, but buyer beware. The person who's reading it has to use their brain.
10 best hosts, and how do those people get in that spot?
You know what? 10 best hosts, but you look on a different website, they're going to list a different 10 best hosts. It depends on who their affiliates are, right?
It's like voted best, chicken wings in Las Vegas. It's like, who, yeah, great. I'm so glad you were voted best chicken wings in Las Vegas, but who was the one that told us that you were voted best, and why were you voted best, and what was the reasoning behind it? Yeah, I'm totally with you, Jen. Reviews are definitely not now you have to have you should have some sort of way of actually putting the words together to make the sentences that are constructive, and people will be able to understand it and go, oh, this person's really great at writing. So I guess you don't have to necessarily have a journalistic way of being able to go about this, but you have to
be able to write so a fifth
or
grader
string words better than I just did to make that whole point across. But I mean, it
doesn't require a hefty degree to be able to state your opinion on something, or even to do research on multiple products and state your opinion. And people who follow you, if you're an influencer and you're saying these things and they believe in what you do, they're going to probably try those products, and that's great because you've exposed them to something that maybe they didn't know about before. But does it mean that it's 100% fact? Does it mean that they're not getting some payout or discount because they're talking about it? If they're a legitimate reviewer, they should say in the review however they were compensated for writing that.
Is that a legal requirement?
It's a legal requirement, but it doesn't mean everyone does it.
Yeah.
So that's
it's like, hashtag ad or something on your Twitters or any of these things that, influencers should be doing. There's plenty of, we watch YouTube videos, we'll watch a YouTube video where the person's like, this is my favorite product ever. It's so awesome. This is the best thing ever. And they start talking about this thing. And then you come to find out that, the company sent it to them and it was free and they're able to kind of, do stuff with it. And that's kind of, there has to be some type of journalistic integrity or some type of writing integrity or something like that. But there's plenty of sites. Wirecutter, if you've ever looked at the Wirecutter, the Wirecutter used to be like the spot to go look at it. But after a while, you start looking at the Wirecutter and you're like, these guys keep favoring the same company over and over again. Like, what the heck is going on with that? And then you come to find out, well, the Wirecutter's getting a cut because of this thing. And you're like, oh, okay, well, they're no longer a credible source for me because they're just going to talk about this one, this one iPhone case over and over and over again. It's like, oh, great. Don't need that anymore.
Years ago, I used to write restaurant reviews. And of course, I love that job, right? You both know I like to dine out. And it was great. And I would take a friend or be on a date or whatever. And I would just track what I was ordering, pay attention to my surroundings. Then I would write up a story on it. I always said at the end, I would give my business card, but after the bill was paid.
Yeah.
So if they were going to comp anything, they were comping because they would have comped anyone in the restaurant. If they liked us and said, hey, we're going to bring you free dessert. It wasn't because I worked at a newspaper or a news magazine or something like that. It was because that's the way they do business.
Mm-hmm.
I know other people though, who would go in and a lot of famous reviewers do this, they see them walking in, they know that reviewer's there. And so they're going to get the best service. They're going to get and so when they write that stinging review, it's even worse because it wasn't just man on the street coming in,
Yeah.
Right.
And so even with those kinds of reviews, you have to be super careful because you can give yourself away just in conversation.
Yeah.
But so even before the web was what it is, there were people who were unscrupulous in writing reviews. Like that's nothing new. And you could probably go back to the Bible and see something review, because
that was the worst stable I ever stayed in. One star.
What inn? Yeah,
this
exactly.
Is the last one. Are you kidding me?
This whole town was booked up. You weren't ready for the snacks. 1 star. Bethlehem, you get 1 star. And the pun becomes star. But you know what I'm saying? Like, so where does that leave publishers, Jen? In Mission Viejo, there's a community magazine and it's all printed and everybody gets it. And it's really hard to advertise in there or even write an article because he only wants it to be like super small. And then it's not even online. So you have this whole thing where like Rolling Stone is, a magazine that's a publication that XWP did, right? It's on WordPress. It's awesome and robust. And then there's like this Mission Viejo reporter that's, I don't even know if they're online because I can't ever find them. Then you've got Alaska Airlines that they have a magazine and then there's a PDF version of it. Why are those words on the internet, like for Google to read it? Like, I don't understand in this where it's so easy for people to publish. Why is there a reluctance to make those articles blog posts?
You're going to be shocked. You're going to be shocked. Okay, so there's a couple of reasons. One is paywall, right? There, where you get to a publication and they're like, wait, we only want subscribers to see it. So that's their way to make money. So they're not going to share the full story with you unless they can cash out on it. So that's one. But another thing is that as normal as the web is to you and I and Jason and people on the show watching us, it is not a normal thing for publishers who are used to, especially the publishers who've been publishing for 40, 50 years. Right?
Yeah.
They're used to the days where you used to cut out text, lay it up with a ruler, measure your pixels, add in your image, use a waxer, a wax roller. You would put the photos through this. That's how they would get sticky. They didn't use glue. And then that way you could reposition everything as you're laying out, dumbing up the paper and stuff. And so that mindset is still very prevalent. Newspapers are old school. They are not run by millennials for the most part. Okay. And so you're not seeing people who grew up with tech like we did. And I don't know, I probably shouldn't name the publication, but there's a local publication, it's a newspaper, I actually helped them get their website online and put their archives online, because I was like, this is my local community. We have got to, we're getting these things in your newspaper and it's being mailed to these homes, right? Because loyal, dedicated residents are still paying for their subscriptions, but it's not going anywhere else. And so it was important to me that it be online. So I said, let me advise you on this process. But even so, it's so rudimentary because there wasn't a lot of money to invest. That's why a lot of these newspapers are folding. And even the big ones, I mean, BuzzFeed, Yahoo has some of the most amazing news online. I personally think, like, they have unique stories that you're not going to find anywhere else. I don't know how, but for 25 years, Yahoo News has been my like go-to when I'm looking for something. Yeah. I mean, way back when they were a purple credit card, they're still
in business.
Yeah.
Well, because they merged with AT&T.
Right.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. The merging.
Verizon. Yeah. But get TechCrunch, Huffington Post, like all of these people had layoffs, major layoffs this week. The money is not in the publishing.
Especially the first quarter of the year. Quarter year is always the lowest for ad sales. It's just everyone did their big spends at the end of the year. We see a huge increase, 5 times increase at the end of the year, and then beginning of the year, it's just a slow ramp up until about, I'd say about June, July, and then that's when like AdSense is starting to do really well. AdWords are starting to sell like crazy, and then that's when advertising starts going nuts. So that's why with WordPress sites, especially with WordPress sites, the fact that you can install like one plugin to have like a paywall on your site, and now you're like, okay, well, I have a paywall on my site, and now I need to be able to sell subscriptions, and now you can install, I'm just looking here, there's like an Issue M subscription system that will tie in, and now you can subscribe to that site. So, I mean, there are ways to still make money that aren't just advertising.
Well, right,
means you're not like, messing with
a mix of advertising and subscriptions has always been the business model for publications.
Yes, we used to do advertorials, and we always designated them by putting them in a box with a border and writing this is an advertorial at the bottom. Nowadays, there's no box, there's no border, there's no singling it out.
Blog post.
Yeah, or it's clickbait, right? Like you're reading an article and you're like, wow, this is fascinating. And then there's like something underneath it that seems related. So you click on it and then it's like this crazy thing. And suddenly you're in la la land going, how did I get here? And why am I being targeted for something I have no interest in?
No, seriously. Yeah. Now that I'm in the travel industry, like Travel Pulse is just a giant PR firm for the cruise lines. I can't even tell you how many times I see stuff about Norwegian and Princess and Ritz-Carlton has a yacht line and Windstar Cruises. And then you read these Travel Pulse articles and they're just like probably the only thing keeping PR people in business, because it's a giant press release reframed as a blog post. I have to read it because it's my job to know the industry. But I'm sitting here going, I cannot believe these people are making money. But then like someplace like the Harvard Business Review, at least they let me see things 5 times a month. Like they let you in a little bit, right?
Right.
And then if I want to, I can subscribe. Because like that's actually worth subscribing to. I like the academic publications.
Right.
Because they're more evergreen. Especially because I create content for my clients. I love Stanford Graduate School of Business and Harvard Business Review are two of my favorite sources. But like there's a reasonable amount of you can see some things without being like clickbait.
Right.
Where you have to keep clicking through. The top 10 destinations this summer. And it's a slideshow. Kill me right now. I'm bouncing because then I'm done. I'm not going to click with 3 pop-ups, one here, one here, one here, one on the down, one on the really down, and then the little like arrow things to get rid of them are so small you can barely see it, and then you can't even read the thing in the first place. If you have epilepsy, you can't even have it because it's popping up all over the place. It's ridiculous. It looks like MySpace. in 1998. So
how do we make this part of it answer the last question of and how it matters to WordPress? Like, how does this matter to WordPress? What's the part that we should really drive home with this?
It matters to WordPress because WordPress is getting the market share. I mean,
right, like Rolling Stone is on WordPress.
Yeah.
Major news sites are on WordPress because WordPress can handle the traffic.
Right. Well, and also WordPress has the diversity and major publications are still going to have lots of expenses because they're this many layers deep, right? But we're still, it's a way to cut costs as well. And so you're still going to have your organization, but by having this news and dispersing it on websites, one, you can have alternate views presented quite easily, and you can see the discussion take place because that commenting isn't someone writing in either as an email or a physical letter to a newspaper. It's happening in real time.
Yeah.
And as long as those comments aren't closed, you can really see an evolution of what news can become.
Yeah,
because people contribute their own. In Huntington Beach, where I live, there is a community forum, Huntington Beach Community Forum. And I use that as a news source because what ends up happening is, it's really windy or something, or lights out at a certain intersection. I'm like, what's going on? So I go to, it's a Facebook page, it's not WordPress, but it's a Facebook forum. And I go on there and sure enough, it tells me, there was a tornado that touched down in the parking lot of Starbucks. Like you read these things because people are reporting at what they're seeing. They're being real life reporters, but they're just average people.
Right.
And they're not trained. They, maybe not even be writing in fifth grade literacy, standards, but they're getting the story out because they're on the ground and they're seeing it happen live. And that's really what our world's turning into. And so people are creating drama and news where maybe it shouldn't be, but at the same time, that's a community newspaper. That's a community newspaper.
Yeah. So, back in the day when I started, you could do a blog post by emailing. And there's, and plus with the Gravity forms or whatever form plugin you like, getting user-generated content, so not really that difficult anymore. Do you still see WordPress, Jen, as a good way for a smaller publication to be online with, the REST API and those kinds of things? Or?
Absolutely. I have inquiries all the time where people are trying to get their organization or their business, and WordPress is an easy place to start. There are other places they could start. They could start with Squarespace. They could start with Wix. And so my question is always, do you care about whether or not your sites can be found in search? That's my big question. If someone says no, I'm like, go do Wix on your own, figure it out. If someone says yes, and Strikingly is another one I send people to. But if they do care, then I say WordPress is where it's at, as far as being able to get your content seen by more people. You're going to have more tools, more community, more support, whether it's me building your website as my company or whether I'm just your friend trying to help you out. You're going to have a wealth of knowledge that's available from day one that you're not going to have with those other sources. And it's going to go farther and you just have more options so you can grow. You could have just a one-page website, simple navigation, get your point across, right on your blog. 3 years from now, suddenly you have a following of 3,000 people. You can do way more with that.
Yeah.
So I always get people onto WordPress and building their list and going from there.
Yeah, my local newspaper, Whittier Daily News, runs on WordPress VIP, and it works great, and everything works fine, and there's no major issues or anything like that. And for them and I've watched the evolution of their newspaper go from just being a WordPress site to being a WordPress site that was hosted at a bigger hosting company, and then kind of work their way through. I had no involvement whatsoever in the newspaper or anything, but being the person that I am, I'm like, okay, who's hosting this thing? What's happening? How are they building this thing? I'm like, enumerating their through their API to figure out how many people are writing for the thing. I mean, I'm looking at everything because, it's the local newspaper. I want to see what these guys are up to.
Right.
And it's really cool to see that, they're using the same tools that I'm using. Now they're on WordPress VIP, totally different situation there entirely. But yeah, very cool to see that they're able to just kind of pull that off and be able to do what they're doing.
I love seeing that black bar at the top because I know I can like the post. So I don't know if we reminded Jen that at this point in the show, we do our tool or tip of the week.
You didn't.
Yeah.
We did not, but I actually have one. I bought the subscription to Ripple, RIPL, and it lets you make these like kind of videos. It's not really a video. I mean, it ends up being a video file that you can put on Instagram or whatever, but it will prompt you through like it'll say today's an idea day, today's a quote day, today's a tip day. It'll give you like these different kind of suggestions. There's an app in the App Store. I don't know if it's in the Google Play. Sorry, guys. And if you pay for it, you can do your own custom branding, have your own logo. I did it a couple of times for a couple of my clients and for myself, and I really liked it. I cut back because I didn't really want to spend a bunch of money on subscription. It's so easy to spend money on SaaS things, but I really like it, and I'm thinking about adding it back because I feel like every once in a while it's good to see something on Instagram that like has motion. Just because I've been doing Instagram more for the travel agent and my speaking coach, I feel like Instagram can be a good thing is for the ads. I still see it as a behind the scenes showing your brand company culture thing. But if you hook it up with your Facebook page and then you use this, you can make that an ad and then it will show and then you can have something that actually clicks. I just have a hard time with Instagram not letting you click to stuff. It could go really bad really fast if they did, but through the ad program with this little app, Ripple, or I'm sure there's a million things like that, but they actually got me from Instagram. I saw their ad and I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. And the other thing I just wanted to remind people about is with brand awareness, it takes like, I don't know, probably 7 to 10 impressions or touches before anybody does anything. We think that there's a first click. Like you see a bathing suit and you just click and buy it. I saw that bathing suit 7 times. Then I finally said, you know what? I like that color green. I like how strappy it is. It's modest. This is perfect. I'm going to buy it. It's coming from China. It's going to be 2 months before I get it, which is fine because it's winter. But my point being, you got to know your audience. So like, I started thinking, okay, maybe I'm so stuck in Twitter that I'm not seeing other opportunities. So I decided to invest in Ripple. And I think now that I'm doing some more Instagram work, I'm going to turn it back on. RIPL.
Man, I have a couple of them. Darn it. I have a couple of these that I wanted to share, but I'll go with one of them, but I'll give you a bonus one. How about that? And it totally relates to Bridget's thing, and also give Jen a few minutes to figure out something that she.
Thank you, because I'm like going through. What did I learn this week?
So my
this week.
Yeah. So the app I've been using on my phone quite a bit. I drive for Lyft, and I come home from driving for Lyft, and I just want to brain dump. Here's all the stuff that happened. Here's all the things that, kind of excited me or were crazy or things I want to remember for next time or what have you. And I record myself, saying these things essentially turn into a blog post. But I started to find out that Siri is not that great when it comes to like really getting good, accurate. I mean, it's one thing for text messages because I'll just blindly send a text message to Jen and Bridget and be like, I went to Knott's Berry Farm today, and then they look at it and they're like, I found a berry on the ground farm thing. Like it's like,
but we know you have passes, so we know what you meant. We
but you have
understand
some
the hieroglyphics.
right. It's like some
I have
goofy
passes now
whatever.
too. We should totally meet up there.
We should totally meet up there. So the app I wanted to tell you about is something I used to use way back in the day, and it's a company called Nuance, which is the company that essentially brought up Siri to begin with. But the company is called, or rather, the software is called Dragon Anywhere. And Dragon Dictate used to be a thing I used to run on Windows.
Dragon.
And you like put the headset on, and then you would say like 5,000 words into the machine, and then the machine would figure out what you're saying. Then you're like, move the window 10 pixels to the right, and then they would just move the window 10 pixels to the right. Nowadays, this is totally different. There's not much training you have to do. As you start using it, it gets better at the goofy words that you say or the way in which you say things. And for someone like me who didn't go to college and is not a journalist or any of those fun things like Jen is, I just say whatever I say and I throw it out there, and it tries to regurgitate it and come up with what it needs to say, and it spits it out. So Dragon Dictate has been kind of a godsend for me. What I hate about it is just how expensive it is. It is not a cheap product. But for me to be able to I write out emails with it now. I write out blog posts with it. Anytime that I want to just like not worry about the connection from my brain to my fingers, and I just need to say it fast and get it out there, Dragon Dictate.
Okay, so it's available Android, iOS, 1 week trial, $14 a month. That's not that bad.
Not that bad, but it's like $14 a month for something. It's like buying a $14 keyboard every month. It's like, oh my gosh. Can I just like type this stuff in?
If you save a lot of time.
Yep, I do.
And like say your time costs $25 an hour.
Yep.
Which it should cost a lot more. But let's say cost, not worse, cost.
Right.
Then you already are ahead.
Oh yeah. By far.
You're going to save an hour. People like me and Jen that type 60, 70 words a minute, maybe not so much.
Right.
But if you have carpal tunnel.
Or ulnar tunnel, which I had.
That's a great.
Yeah.
That's not that bad of a price.
But Dragon Dictate's awesome.
I pay more than that for I pay that for Hootsuite every month. $14.99.
Yeah. I have another one for you. This one's interesting because this one is totally something that you would never think in a zillion years Jason's going to drop.
Mine has to do with AI.
Mine actually has nothing to do with a computer or technology or anything.
Oh, what?
I know, right? So, Bridget, you were talking a little bit ago about I can't remember exactly what you ended up saying, but you alluded to the fact that of buying clothing. Or something about clothing.
Green bathing suit.
Bathing suit. That's what it was.
Weeks.
Yeah, 6 weeks. So that totally made me think about this thing. So my daughter loves to wear dresses, and she wears dresses all the time, but she's a totally different shape, size, everything than what's in the store. And we're all bigger people. I'll say this about myself. I don't know about you guys, but and so because of this, finding the right shape, the right size, the right everything. My daughter goes to this website called eShakti.com.
Oh my gosh. Yvonne keeps telling me to go there. Oh my gosh.
Yes. So if you're looking for a dress, if you need that special something for your after party at WordCamp.
After party at a WordCamp.
Yeah.
They do custom dresses. Yeah.
But it does have to do with the computer because you put your sizes in there.
Okay, so
it's awesome.
Yeah, who measures you though when you live by yourself?
So eShakti is how when my first daughter got married, Elizabeth, we had 8 bridesmaids to outfit with all different body types. We went to eShakti, had the dresses made. They were adorable. And
that's such a good idea.
All the same. Yeah, it was great. And they were just like $43 a dress or something.
And you pick the sleeves. Like I like a 3/4 length or T, but some people want no sleeves. I also like cap sleeves. You can pick V-neck, a square neck, a round neck, a deep V. I've been wanting to do it because Yvonne looks so cute in every single one of her dresses. And she goes, Bridget, Why haven't you done this? And here, this is the part you forgot because you're a boy. They have pockets.
They have pockets. You told, yeah, my daughter gets pockets in her dresses. She loves it.
That is it.
Mm.
Pockets in dresses.
Yep.
I think we procrastinated long enough.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is
Jen
something
Miller, I'm just telling you, you better have something good. Because if
I
you
have
don't have
something
something
cool.
good, then yeah, this
I
might
have
be your
something
last
cool,
time on
and
the
I'm
show.
going to pull it out of my back pocket, Bridget, just for you. It's something that I've actually been working with clients for, I don't know, at least 6-7 months, and done some of my own videos using it. It's called Lumen 5, and it is AI. What you do is you take your blog post, you plug it in, and it matches it up with pictures. Bridget, I think you worked with me on a project with this,
I
right?
said I was trying to be surprised.
I know, but it's super cool.
So
And then
cool.
you can
It's the
change
coolest
the
thing
images.
ever.
You can put videos in instead. You can upload your own
Music.
footage, music. And so you can have the videos that has the text that goes across it. You just choose which phrases you want. It's rad. It's super
so
fast.
rad.
You can put together
Wow.
a really nicely produced video in like 15 minutes, or you could spend 6 hours on it like we did one time. But
Jason Tucker is not going to bed tonight.
No.
you're going to love it, Jason.
I just saw that face like, oh my gosh,
Like,
this is the
what?
coolest thing
This
ever.
is awesome.
It's so awesome.
Oh my gosh.
It's so awesome.
Okay,
And
so
I have a
what-
paid account, so if you want to play with it some more, let me know.
yeah, I don't need the 480 resolution videos.
This show is not sponsored by Ripple, eShakti,
Or Lumen
Dragon
5.
Dictate, or Lumen 5. We'd like to
Can you
say
imagine if I did get eShakti to sponsor
Oh,
this?
that would
would
be
be funny.
funny is
That
if
would be funny.
eShakti runs ads on this, or if people
Oh
can
my
be
gosh.
targeted.
Oh man.
Okay, do you guys want to hear about something kind of mind-blowing? Jason, you're going to be shocked that I didn't realize this until December. So, we speak, right? We go to these conferences, we talk. We have these little dongle things. This isn't one, but, that plug in.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had the one that goes into my phone and my iPad, and I would only use it to speak. I didn't realize it had other functionality. I just didn't think about it. But over Christmas or over the holidays, I found myself needing to share something that was on my phone on a TV that wasn't very smart, and it had an HDMI cord though, so I could plug it in. Okay, so you can watch Psych from your phone on a TV.
That's awesome.
Oh my gosh, it's
Just
so
by
awesome.
plugging it in?
Yeah. And have you seen that show yet?
I
It's on
love
Psych?
that.
Oh, I
Amazon?
love Psych.
I love that
Psych.
show. I used
Okay,
to watch
but
it on
that's
Hulu.
that's like a journalism type show, right? You have to be super
Yeah.
observant. You have to see
Yeah, yeah.
everything. Yeah. And so it kind of just brings us all back to, sometimes we have things in our everyday lives that we use all the time and we don't realize that they're multi-use. But yeah, that was me. So now I know how to watch Psych on my non-smart TV.
I love that
That's awesome.
so much.
You know what else you can do with that as well? So I don't know if you've ever used a selfie stick, but the selfie stick itself usually has a little adapter on it. It says the selfie stick with the little adapter.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a headphone. Obviously, it's just a headphone jack, right? And so when we're done with the show, Jen, unplug your headphones from it, load up the camera app, and then just push the mute button on your headphones. No joke, it'll take a picture.
Oh.
So if you need to take an actual selfie, you could just go click and hit the little button on your headphones that are hanging right there, and it'll take the picture for you.
Oh.
Wow.
The little mute button is what does the click.
Wow.
So on the selfie stick, when you push the little button right here,
Yeah.
that's just pushing the mute button.
Oh, I didn't know that. See, I don't use selfie sticks. I got a selfie stick right here.
So many,
Well, that's what I'm saying.
so many new things. So many new things tonight.
I know.
Thank you for having me on the show. This was great.
Yes,
Thanks
of
for being
course.
on the show. Clearly, we took way too long with sabbatical for lots of reasons. And so Jason wants to thank our sponsors, right?
Yeah. I want to say thank you very much for Desktop Server, makers of ServerPress, and ServerPress makers of Desktop Server. I always get those confused, but go check them out. They make some really awesome software for being able to do live local development of your website and be able to kind of play around with it before you go and install it and actually run it on a web host. You can just do it straight off of your local computer there. And they support many different operating systems. There's a bunch of different ways in which you can do it. You can run 3 websites on there for free, if I remember correctly, on your local site. And it's awesome. 3. Yep. So thank you very much for that. Make sure you go over to their website and go take a look at that. Thank y'all. You have a good one. Jen Miller, as always, you're always welcome to come and be on the show and talk about whatever it is.
Yeah, even if we have another guest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, I'm free Thursday nights a lot of the time now, so this is awesome. Okay, so I have another question.
Yeah.
I have AirPods now. Can I like touch one of them and have it take a selfie?
That's Eric in the chat said probably even better with Bluetooth headphones, winky face. Obviously,
I don't think you can do that.
You can't mute AirPods.
Try it, Jason.
I'll hang up on you if I do it right now.
Okay, so I did that to someone. So if you touch it, it hangs up on people?
It depends. You configure it in the if you go into the Bluetooth settings on your phone under settings Bluetooth, you can specify what each side does. So you can say this one does Siri and this one does pause and start and stop.
Okay, that's weird.
I need like tutelage on how to make my AirPods effective.
I'll help you out right after we hit the stop button.
Oh, are we not on the show?
We're still
on the show.
We're still on the show. We'll end it because I need to do laundry and make dinner.
See y'all. Bye-bye.